Coming in number 10, we have the Empire State Building 103rd floor viewing room. I mean, if you want to see the whole New York skyline and you don't want to break the bank on your trip to the top of the Empire State Building, and you want to grab a drink, you better believe that there's a hotel called The Standard that has all of those things. But for those of you who really want to head to the top of New York and can't do it without popping into the iconic Empire State Building, then I'll have you know that you're not even getting the best view. You spent all that money to go to the top of the Empire State Building only to find out that there is a secret room that you are not qualified to check out. There happens to be a 103rd floor that you can't get to. This helps the rich and famous see the whole city without tourist crowds. Now I'm sorry, but just going to the front desk and asking if you can get there isn't enough. You actually have to be someone of status. Unless you're very rich, very famous, or a government official, you are not going anywhere near the 103rd floor. I'm sorry, but you're just not important enough. The government and the people who run the building don't want you going up to that floor because it's going to lose its attraction. I'm sorry, but you're going to be stuck on the 102nd floor, looking up, wondering which important people are hovering above you. Coming in number 9, we have the Mount Rushmore Vault. Now, this next one is going to sound like it was pulled out of a comic book, but I will let you know that it is 100% real. Behind Abraham Lincoln's head on Mount Rushmore is a secret tunnel that leads to a massive room that is full of US documents. Like, come on. I remember Team America World Police, they had a secret base in Mount Rushmore, but this couldn't be the truth. But would I lie to you? This was actually the original vision of the man who built Mount Rushmore. And can I just say for a moment that this is probably the most patriotic thing that anyone has ever done? I mean, you could put a flag in your front yard, but that is nothing compared to the amount of work that went into building faces of some of the most famous presidents in America into the side of a mountain. But inside this vault are some government documents. Now, what's on those documents, no one really knows. It could be anything. They could be extremely valuable. It could be the Declaration of Independence, or it could be just a bunch of boring files that don't really mean anything. And you are not going to get invited into this vault unless you have some sort of government power. Coming in at number 8, we have the Lehman Brothers secret Times Square building. When you look at all of the massive buildings in Times Square, you probably think that rent must be super high to have a spot in one of those buildings. Well, you would be right, but there is something that is even more valuable than renting the space. It's ads. If every building in Times Square is covered in ads because companies will pay out the butt to have all their stuff promoted up there. And the Lehman Brothers saw this as an opportunity and decided that was all they needed for their building. One of the centerfold buildings in Times Square is owned by the Lehman Brothers, and there is nothing in it. If you were to walk around inside this building, you would literally just have open spaces and dangling wires. The whole thing just acts as a massive billboard, and it's probably very profitable because they don't need to worry about any building upkeep. Coming in at number 7, we have Niihau, Hawaii. How big could a secret room be? Well, how about 70 square miles? Well, this one isn't so much a room, but it is very much an island, and it is definitely a secret that the government is trying to keep secret from everyone. This place is closed off to visitors. It is a self-sufficient island that only has 130 people living on it, and although the people are allowed to leave, no one is allowed to enter outside of medical services. There are some very strict rules on this island. For one, there is no booze. Just so you know, you wouldn't be able to sneak on the island and have a big party. The people there aren't really into that. Also, there are no guns, which is probably a good thing, but again, it brings down how much excitement there will be at any given time. And this place has chosen a way of life that is very different from our own. They don't have any plumbing, they have no traditional roads, and everything in terms of food is taken from the land by farmers and brought to the people. They do have electricity, however. All of that comes from solar panels, but they do not have internet. So you're going to have to get very good at talking to people. What a scary thought. Coming in at number 6, we have the Eiffel Tower apartment. If you go to Paris, you can now see what would be the most expensive apartment in the whole city, and that is the Eiffel Tower apartment. The man who built the Eiffel Tower didn't only do it so he could have his masterpiece be the center of attention. No, he wanted to have the best apartment, maybe in the world. At the top of the Eiffel Tower is an apartment that only could be accessed by one man who built the Eiffel Tower himself. Gustav Eiffel. Now, people can go visit, but that isn't even the most secret part of this secret room. There's also something that is underneath one of the legs of the Eiffel Tower, and that is a military bunker that can prep troops in the heart of the city without the enemy catching on. Could you imagine a bunch of French troops popping out of the base of the Eiffel Tower? You have to admit, the French have a way with theatrics. Coming in at number 5, we have Club 33. Here's something that the super rich and the government want to keep hidden from you, and even with me telling you about it, there's a good chance that you still won't be able to afford the entrance fee. See, Club 33 is something that is hidden away in Disney World. We all know that Disney World is a place where kids come to have their dreams come true, but the kids aren't roaming around free. They're running around with their parents, who, after a long day in the sun taking care of Rugrats, probably want a drink. Turns out you can't get booze when you're at Disney World, but you can if you're part of Club 33. This is a members-only club that is somewhat a high rollers lounge. Only the best of the best can join. You need a recommendation to get in, and on top of that, if you can get accepted, you have to pay a $25,000 membership fee and then $12,000 annually each year after that. It's very much a status symbol. Some suspect that Club 33 has something to do with Jesus or the devil, since we all know that number 33 has strong religious connotations. I don't know if that's true, but if you're blowing your money at Disney World in that amount, you're probably in the Illuminati. Coming at number 4, we have the secret train station under Waldorf Astoria. In movies, high-ranking government officials always have some sort of secret underground transportation that they can use to get around, and some of you think that that couldn't be a real thing in real life. There's no way that something like that could exist. Well, think again. Under one of the most famous hotels in New York, a hotel known as the Waldorf Astoria, there is a train station that is only used by the president himself. This is partly because almost every president has stayed there ever since its inception, but it's also one of the most secure ways for the president to travel. No one can get down there, and even if they did, there is a ton of secret features that the rail car has. For all we know, this thing could be built like a Bond car and have heat-seeking missiles that come through the headlights. Coming at number 3, we have Room 39. This is one of the most secret places in North Korea, which is already a very secretive place. No one really knows what goes on in Room 39, but people suspect that government workers work in there to try and create revenue for North Korea through illegal activity. Thought that they could be cooking and organizing the distribution of crystal meth, and they are also finding ways to commit billions of dollars in insurance fraud. That is wild. Coming in number 2, we have the Vatican bunker. Now, this isn't a place where the Pope can go to hide out if the world starts to end because he was right about Armageddon. I mean, they probably have a room like that, but it won't be as exciting as the one I'm about to tell you about. The Vatican bunker is a place where they keep all the files that have been held in the Vatican for centuries. We're talking about 1,200 years of paperwork. I mean, I think you could fit most of that stuff onto a hard drive, so I don't know why they're still doing the whole pen and paper thing, but to each their own. But the Vatican archives have all of the juicy details about everything the church has done for a long time. You better believe that all of this information is closed to the public. In fact, if you ever get access to this secret bunker, you have to be a high-ranking scholar, and you can only look through certain folders. The Pope will vet everything that an outsider has access to before they are allowed into the bunker. And there is a hard cutoff. Anything that is younger than 75 years old, there is zero access to. That is a hard and fast rule that only the Pope can break. And even with probably the most accepting Pope of all time, he isn't about to let any of this information slip. But there is a lot of people who want to get their hands on those files with all the problems the church has been getting into in recent years. I can't go into details on this channel because it's disturbing, but either you know what I'm talking about or you're going to go look it up right now. And coming in at the number 1 spot is Area 51. Come on, this has to be number 1. What is going on in Area 51? Now, is this a room? Well, kinda. It's an indoor facility, so there is a room in there somewhere, I'm sure. But the whole thing has to be the biggest place that the government is hiding from us. And what is going on in there? We have no idea. I think we could all say aliens. That's probably what we're all thinking. But there could be some tech that will change the world. They could have mech suits in there that are like the ones from Pacific Rim. Just let us in already. ready and we'll stop messing around with the stock market. I promise.
Starting us off like we always do, and at number 10.
One incredible story from Stringfield's files comes from a first-hand witness who inventoried UFO crash debris at one of America's most prominent military bases.
The base he's referring to is the Wright-Patterson Air Force Base, which is WPAFB for short, although that's kind of still long. Well, the base is located east of Dayton, Ohio. This is one of the oldest fully functional bases in America. It dates back from 1917, which is near the end of World War I. Project Grudge and Project Blue Book, that has been around since the 50s, are intelligence investigation organizations. They have estimated to investigated over 12,618 reported sightings. Out of those sightings, 701 of them were left on remains, questionable. And you know what? Some of these reports came back from the Wright-Patterson Air Force Base. So what is going on there?
What seems likely is that UFO evidence is being first brought into a receiving area where some witnesses may see the crates being unloaded. Then, the bodies are taken and stored in underground chambers below the base.
Moving into number 9.
Rumor has it there is a secret base hidden underneath the Archuleta Mesa here. The mountain overlooks Dulce. Some people in town say the base is run by aliens working with our federal government to conduct mind control and genetic experiments.
So that was the Dulce base, which has become the subject of conspiracy theories. Should we raid these places on this list? I don't know. Well, the place I'm talking about is located in Dulce, New Mexico in the United States. People believe that this very secretive facility is ran by like a joint operations between humans and aliens. Is this real life right now? In the 80s, a businessman named Paul Frederick Benowitz Jr., well, he claimed he saw a UFO and aliens in this facility. He has claimed to have uncovered evidence of aliens controlling humans through electromagnetic devices. In 1988, he wrote a paper entitled Project Beta, and that's where he detailed how the base might be successfully attacked. An aerial phenomenon research organization has regarded Benowitz Jr. as a deluded paranoid man. Regardless if this man is crazy or not, there's an underground facility that is 7 stories underground. Like, why? Obviously there's something hiding down there. Number 8.
A former intelligence worker has lifted the lid on some of his top secret work in Australia. David Rosenberg was a US agent at the remote Pine Gap Spy Station near Alice Springs for almost 20 years.
Pine Gap is a very large facility located right smack in the middle, well, maybe a little bit north, but it's in Australia. It's located in a town called Alice, which is located in Northern Territory. This facility is operated by both Australian and the United States. The facility has a satellite surveillance base, otherwise known as Australian Earth Station.
Other times we could be looking at something that is quite groundbreaking, information that would eventually be briefed to the President and the Prime Minister.
There are mountains that surround the facility, and people believe that it could be a holograph, like the mountains are just fake. I don't know about that one. Well, they think that the real base, Pine Gap, is actually miles underground. The big question is, what is the government trying to hide at this facility? A question that, you know what, we may never know the answer to. Number 7. Secret UFO bases in Antarctica. What's the best place to hide something? Well, why not a place where the population is only 70 to about 350 people? Conspiracy theorists believe that the government are currently hiding artificial intelligence in bases in Antarctica. There's an article published in 2018, and the headline was UFO crashes into Antarctica leaving a trail of destruction. To me, it just looks like maybe a plane crash there. I don't know if it was a UFO, but others speculate, and experts looked into this crash site, and they've concluded that they're pretty sure it wasn't a plane, and this is when speculation started and all of the alien theories came to life. Many believed that covered underneath all of the snow are facilities hidden away, more secluded and more secretive than Area 51. How do I know this? Well, have you guys even heard of this base? Who's heard of Area 51? Everyone. So how secretive is it? Number 6.
You are entering one of the most secret places on Earth. It's a bunker built into a hollowed out mountain in Colorado. It's just one of the top secret shelters where 7,000 Americans will go to in the event of nuclear annihilation.
So that was Mount Weather Emergency Operations Center. It seems like America is very afraid of nuclear wars, because while researching for this list, I found a ton of bomb shelters for Americans to hide in, and you guys gotta wait till number 1 of this video to see a very intense and nuclear, indestructible bomb shelter that you guys won't believe. The Mount Weather Emergency Operations Center is a civilian command facility. It's in the US, and it's known as the highest level of civilian and military officials base in case of a natural disaster. It's been around since 1959, but people don't buy that nothing is happening at the facility while we just wait for disaster to happen. I mean, what is it currently being used for? Could this be another place where aliens and UFOs are being hidden? Some believe that this facility has already been used in the past when aliens did invade. Well, you know what? I'm not sure what to believe here. Number 5. Have you guys heard of a Roswell UFO incident? Well, we might have talked about it on this channel, and we probably talked about it a couple times. It's a pretty famous story. Well, it was all over the news back in 1947. Okay, look at this article. RAAF captures flying saucer on ranch in a Roswell region. This was huge news. Well, the government got involved with this and apparently hid the UFO in a secret facility that nobody knows about. Maybe Area 51? Well, we might find out soon after the raid happens.
UFO hunters may have found the evidence they're seeking. At a conference in Mexico City, UFO specialist Jamie Mawson presented never-before-seen photos of a purported alien body from the 1947 Roswell crash.
After the UFO spacecraft crashed, apparently this body was found. I'm pretty sure, yeah, it's not human at all. People think that this is a hoax, while others believe that this is real. The question is, what did happen during the year of 1947? And what facility did that crashed spacecraft go to? Number 4, we have Russia's version of Area 51 called Kapustin Yar, which is a Russian rocket launch and development site that has been around since 1946. In public opinion, the site is often referred to as Russian Roswell, the place where they captured wrecked alien ships. Well, there have been many reports that 23 Russian soldiers were just zapped by aliens after shooting down a UFO. Other reports have said that this facility has access to alien technology. There isn't too much about this facility for obvious reasons, so I couldn't find much information about it, but I do wonder if there is an Area 51 type location in every country. Like, where's Canada's version of this? Where would they hide it? Maybe down in Niagara Falls? And at number 3, we all know about the world's famous Area 51, but what about Area 6? Area 6 does exist, and it's kind of under the radar. Most people never heard of it.
So Area 6 is located on the Yucca Flat, which is part of the Nevada National Security Site, as you mentioned, which is one of the most secretive sites for the military in the country.
Okay, so this secret facility is also located in Nevada. Nevada seems to be big if they can house Area 51 and Area 6, and who knows what other areas.
Now, just like Area 51, Area 6 is incredibly mysterious. We don't know a whole lot about it, and that's because the National Nuclear Security Administration has been very mum. They've been very tight-lipped about what goes on there.
It seems to me the government has done a great job at hiding this one. Area 6 held 4 nuclear tests for a total of 6 detonations. The facility used to be a device assembly facility, or DAF for short, but now it serves as an experiments facility. They don't specifically say what types of experiments they do, but I think we all know what they're up to. Something to do with extraterrestrial life. Number 2, we have Adams Bridge, and it's located between India and Sri Lanka.
A NASA satellite passes over the shallow waters of the Indian Ocean. It sends back images of a chain of largely submerged objects running between Sri Lanka and India.
People are calling this a magical bridge between the two countries, ancient engineering. Like, what the heck does that mean? Archaeological studies reveal that the bridge dates back to the primitive age, and it might have been constructed about 1.75 million years ago. Like, how do we even know that? This might show proof that aliens might have been on Earth well before humans have, or at least some sort of intelligence were on Earth before us.
The sandbar may be natural, but what's sitting on top of it is not.
This isn't just a simple sandbar. There's objects in here that haven't been eroded away.
Finally, number 1, we have Area 52. Area 52 is one better than... Okay, I'm just kidding. I tried to look for Area 52. I'm not sure if it exists. Maybe it does, maybe it's more secretive than Area 51. So okay, really coming in at number 1, we have the Cheyenne Mountain Complex, which is also known as the most secured place in the world. It's located under 2,000 feet of granite in Colorado Springs. This is a nuclear blast-proof facility and is currently the home to North American Aerospace Defense Command. It has its own self-contained power plants, water supply, heating systems, a hospital, and possible a hideout for aliens and top secret information.
So we do occasionally will call ourselves America's Fortress for a reason, and that is because we are, by design, here for the worst day in American history.
So the last thing ever standing in the world if we were invaded by aliens or a nuclear attack, this could possibly be the hideout for presidents and world leaders if anything were to happen to the world.
Starting off this list in our number 10 spot, we have Project 1794. This project was created with the goal to build a sort of saucer-type aircraft that would be designed to shoot down Soviet bombers. The program, which was created in the 1950s, was quite ambitious and had some pretty lofty goals. A team of engineers began trying to build a disc-shaped aircraft, but here's the real kicker. They wanted it to be capable of traveling at supersonic speeds at high altitudes. The documents about this project show that they wanted it to be able to travel at Mach 4, which is 4 times the speed of sound, and they wanted it to be able to reach an altitude of over 100,000 feet. At the time, the project was estimated to cost about $3 million, which is about $26 million in today's money. In the end, the project was cancelled in 1961 because the craft failed tests and proved to be aerodynamically unstable, which of course would provide a whole slew of problems at high speeds, especially supersonic ones. In our number 9 spot today, we have Operation Crossroads. This operation is the name for all of the US nuclear bomb tests that took place at the Bikini Atoll in 1946. Following World War II, the threat of nuclear war was at the front of everyone's minds, which led people to want to test their nuclear powers, and the US president at the time, Harry Truman, ordered that the military continue to test nuclear weapons just in case they were needed in the future. Unfortunately, Bikini was the place that was chosen to be the testing site, since all planes and ships traveled on routes that weren't close to the area. This wasn't the most secret mission there's ever been, and the testing that took place on Bikini is now well known, but newly declassified documents shed a lot of light onto how the residents of Bikini were affected by these tests, and it also shows the objections that both scientists and military officials had before the tests were done, and the rationale that was used in the decision making when it came to go against all of those objections. In our number 8 spot today, we have Dr. Zhivago. During the Cold War, the CIA began distributing the book Dr. Zhivago throughout the Soviet Union. You might be sitting there thinking that doesn't really sound like an issue of national security, and I thought the exact same thing when I started learning about this secret little project. As it turns out, there was actually a reason behind it. The book was written by the Russian writer Boris Pasternak, and it was banned by the Soviets. It is said that the ban was because the book portrayed an open-minded view of the Bolshevik Revolution, and because the protagonist of the book was individualistic. The CIA saw this as an opportunity to use the book as a tool, as propaganda, so they used some of their allies for help and began delivering copies of the books into the hands of those in the Soviet Union. There isn't a lot of information about what exact effects this had on the Soviet Union, if any, but it does give insight into how the smallest things were done during this time in history, just for one common goal. We often hear about the large missions with technological advancements and tons of money thrown into them, so it makes sense why this small one might often get overlooked. In our number 7 spot today, we have Project Iceworm. This secret mission took place in the 1960s, and it was basically intended to build a series of mobile nuclear missile launch sites under the Greenland ice sheet, because this would then house medium-range missiles close enough that they would be able to strike targets within the Soviet Union. This project was called Project Iceworm, but there was another project called Camp Century. Basically, Camp Century was to test out Project Iceworm and see how likely it would be and how feasible it would be. So engineers went to work and created a network of underground tunnels and buildings that included places to stay, a kitchen, a hall for hanging out, there were supply rooms, and even a communication center and a nuclear power plant. This was all kept as a super secret for a long time and was even kept from the Danish government for 7 years. In 1966, 1956, however, the project was cancelled because of the shifting ice. This created unstable conditions for the underground tunnels that are most likely crushed now, but still remain beneath the Arctic. In our number 6 spot today, we have Project Grudge. No, this is not about the one I have against my ex-bestie. This project was short-lived and took place in 1949. The objective of this project was to study unidentified flying objects, or UFOs. Basically, because of research from before that stated that while some UFOs seemed to be actual aircrafts, there wasn't enough data recorded and facts known about them in order to determine where they had come from. This is actually one project that had a lot of critics surrounding it, and apparently those critics felt like the project was only trying to debunk UFO reports, and I have to ask, even if that was true, why is that a bad thing? I'd like someone to give me a perfectly reasonable explanation for every UFO. I guess the issue really arose because people were feeling like no actual research was being put into the UFOs, and it was more about the objects being evaluated based on the idea that they don't exist, that they all had to be man-made here on Earth, and even beforehand the idea of extraterrestrials were ruled out. In our number 5 spot today, we have Operation Gladio. This was a plan that was developed during the Cold War by the North Atlantic Treaty Organization, or NATO. Basically, the plan was designed to keep Europe as safe as possible if there were to be a Soviet invasion. Basically, the plan was to form these kinds of secret armies in many NATO countries like Italy, Belgium, and France. These armies would be preparing for a potential takeover, and they would then lead the resistance if this were to occur. Some of the preparations for this plan, should it have to go forward, were things like spying, as well as hoarding ammunition, which is a frightening thought. This project was so secret that not only was the Soviet Union obviously kept out of the loop, but some of the highest ranking officials in the countries involved didn't even know about these little secret armies. In our number 4 spot today, we have Operation Washtub. This operation came to light in 2014 when documents became declassified and more people could learn about this Cold War era operation. Basically, this was a covert mission that had its sights set on Alaska. The plan detailed the training of different people who lived in Alaska. We're talking just ordinary residents. They wanted to train these people to both code and decode and a few other different spying tactics, which would have been so cool. I mean, I would have wanted to be picked so badly. Not that I would have known it was even happening, but you get what I mean. Basically, the plan was put in place in case the Soviet Union was to invade Alaska. Then these unsuspecting ordinary citizens would use their newly learned espionage techniques to get all the intel they could and secretly relay the information to high-ranking US officials. As we now know, of course, this invasion never occurred, so the contingency plan wasn't needed, but 89 lucky temporary agents were trained just for this purpose. In our number 3 spot today, we have Acoustic Kitty. Apparently in 1976, the CIA was spending millions of dollars trying to make cats into spies. I don't know why they chose the one animal that does not care what you want it to do, but alas, they did, and Project Acoustic Kitty was born. The project basically involved implanting electronic spy equipment into real living cats, who would then be trained to basically eavesdrop on unsuspecting people. This is another one of those Cold War era plans that was intended to be used on those in the Soviet Union. The project had a whole slew of issues, of course, however, because cats can get hungry and distracted, and unfortunately the first time this plan was being tested, there was a catastrophic outcome. The project was of course cancelled, and the researchers said that they believed they could train cats to move short distances, but that, quote, the environmental and security factors in using this technique in a real foreign situation forces us to conclude that for our intelligence purposes, it would not be practical. In our number 2 spot today, we have the Lunik kidnapping. Don't worry, Lunik is not a person and instead is a Soviet lunar satellite that was kidnapped just for one night. This project honestly sounds like it was taken straight from a movie, and it has to do with the Great Space Race. In the early 1960s, the Soviet Union wanted to make it as clear as possible that they were winning the race to space, so they launched a multinational exhibition of their Lunik satellites, which became the first spacecraft to impact the moon's surface, and when the Luna 3 returned, it brought with it the first ever pictures of the moon's far side. It was a big deal, and it's safe to say that the US wanted to know everything they could about it. Of course, the satellite was heavily guarded, but it was traveling from city to city for this exhibition, so undercover CIA agents went to work. Basically, they convinced the man who drove the transport truck to get some rest at a nearby hotel, and basically they would just look after it for him for a while he rested. I'm sure it was a bit more complicated than this, but you get the gist. From here, the agents then took apart and photographed every single component of the thing before putting it all back together, placing it back in the truck for its next tour date. There's no indication that before the operation became declassified that anyone outside of those involved knew what had happened, and I'm not gonna lie, that's a pretty hilarious plan, and the fact that it worked is both shocking and impressive. In our number 1 spot today, we have Project Horizon. Even before people were going to space, we had big goals in mind for the world of space travel. In 1959, there were plans for a proposed manned military base that would be located, of course, on the moon. This plan, which was dubbed Project Horizon, would, quote, develop and protect potential United States interest on the moon, as said in now declassified documents. It was estimated at the time to cost about $6 billion, and the projected operational date was December of 1966, which is when they thought that they could have 12 soldiers on the base by. The project not only wanted to study more about the surface of the moon, but what better of a place to spy on the Earth than the moon? This project, of course, never came to fruition, and the reason it stopped progressing was because the president at the time, Dwight Eisenhower, rejected it at the same time that the responsibility for America's space program was being transferred over to NASA. Alright guys, that has been our list for today. Thank you so much for checking it out. I've been your host today, Olivia Kozlowski, and I'll see you next time. Bye!